One of my favorite store-bought cookies are double stuffed Oreo cookies. I know, horrible for you, but they're so good. So I've been on a mission to try to find an Oreo cookie substitute that is low carb, sugar-free, gluten-free, keto-friendly, and diabetic-friendly and tastes good. And I'm happy to say I finally found it. So today's recipe, of course, is for gluten-free, keto-friendly Oreo cookie substitutes. And if you want a printable version of this, then check out my website at janetsdeliciouslowcarbkitchen.com. You can find a printable version of this and other goodies there for you. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit the little notification bell. That way you can be notified every time I put out a new video. And while you do that, let's get cooking. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Line 2 large cookie sheets with parchment paper. Use a small cup or a lid or another round circular object, and you're going to make 1 to 2 inch circles on the parchment paper. The bigger the circle is, the bigger your cookie is going to be. I did 2-inch circles for my first batch, and those made a pretty big cookie, which is fine for me because I like my cookies. But if you're wanting more of the traditional size of an Oreo, then I would make this circle about 1 inch in diameter. So it's up to you how big you want your cookies. Space the circles about 2 inches apart because these cookies do spread just a little bit. They don't spread a lot because they are gluten-free, and gluten-free doesn't spread a whole lot, but they do spread a little bit. So make sure you space the circles about 2 inches apart. In a large mixer bowl, add 1 cup of almond flour, 1/4 cup of coconut flour, 3/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum. This is your binding agent. You must have this. 1/2 cup of cocoa powder. I'm using Dutch processed cocoa powder because it's just a little bit darker, but you can use natural cocoa powder and it's just fine. There is a difference between the two and the way they react, and that could be another video if you're curious about the difference between Dutch processed cocoa and natural cocoa powder. But anyway, for this particular recipe, either one will work, so whatever you have on hand is fine. 1 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of monk fruit sweetener or granulated sweetener of your choice. Whisk these all together until they're fully combined and there's no lumps in the flour or the cocoa powder. Cocoa powder and coconut flour especially, they both like to bunch up on you, so make sure that you whisk it well to where there's no lumps. Once it's all whisked together, add 1/2 cup of softened butter. Make sure it's just softened, not melted. It should be soft enough for you to be able to mold it, but not turn into liquid. So soft, not melted. 2 large room temperature eggs. Again, room temperature. They mix in and make a much smoother batter, so make sure everything is room temperature. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. Beat on medium for 20 seconds or just until it's combined. Then bump your mixer up to high and beat it on high for about 30 seconds or just until everything is fully combined and the batter is smooth. Scrape down the sides. Scoop the dough 1 to 2 tablespoons at a time into the center of each circle on the prepared baking sheets. How many scoops of dough you use depends on how big you made your circles and how thick you want your cookies. I'm using my cookie scoop. My cookie scoop is a little over a tablespoon, and that worked perfect for me. But as I already said, I was making bigger cookies. So my cookie was probably about the size of 1.5 Oreos. So if you're wanting just more of the traditional size, then scoop about 1/2 to 3/4 of a tablespoon into the center of a 1-inch circle. And that'll give you more of the traditional size of an Oreo. So again, it just depends on how big and how thick you want your cookies to be. Once you've scooped them into the center of the circles, and gently press the dough down into the shape of the circles that you've drawn onto your parchment paper. Make sure it does stay in a circular form as much as you can, and make sure it stays even. You don't want one side of your cookie to be more puffier than the other. Now this is gluten-free, so gluten-free does not puff up as much as cookies that contain gluten. So pretty much whatever shape you put these onto your cookie sheet, that's pretty much what they're going to come out looking as. This dough does spread a little bit and it does rise just a hint, but not as much as a traditional gluten cookie recipe would. So, like I said, basically whatever shape you put it in, that's the shape it's going to come out. Just a little bit wider and maybe a hair taller. So once you've got all the cookies scooped out and pressed into their circles, and pop them in the oven, bake them for about 10 to 12 minutes or just until they start getting a little bit dark. Now they will still be soft, so do not try to cook them until they're firm. You will end up with burnt cookies. They will be soft when they first come out, but they will firm up as they cool. So don't expect them to be crunchy right off the bat. They will be soft when they come out. Once you've baked them for 10 to 12 minutes, 10 minutes for me was perfect, but everybody's oven is different. So once you've baked them, you bring them out, let them cool on the pan for 15 minutes. This is necessary for them to firm up, because as I said, when you first take them out, they will be soft, but as you let them sit on the pan and cool for 15 minutes, they're going to crisp up and you're going to have a nice firm cookie. So once they've cooled on the pan for 15 minutes, then transfer them to a wire rack and let them cool completely before you put the filling on. You do not want them to be warm when you put the filling on because the filling will melt. So make sure they cool completely. While you're waiting for them to cool, we're going to make the filling. So for the filling, in a large mixer bowl, add a 1/2 cup of softened butter. Again, you want it soft but not melted, soft enough to be able to mold but not turn into liquid. Beat the butter on high for 3 minutes or until it's nice and fluffy and airy. You want that real fluffy texture. Add 1 cup of powdered swerve or powdered sweetener of your choice, and beat on medium for about 30 seconds or until it's fully combined and smooth. Once it's combined, add 1 more cup of powdered swerve or powdered sweetener of your choice, and beat it on medium again for another 30 seconds or until it's fully combined and the mixture is smooth. Scrape down the sides if you need to. Make sure all the filling is pushed to the center of the bowl. Add 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. The salt just helps bring out the flavor. You don't even need it if you don't want it. It does, in my opinion, give it a little bit better of a taste because it brings out that sweetness. Then beat the mixture on high for 1 more minute or until everything is fully combined and it's nice and fluffy. Once it's all combined, scrape down the sides and push all the filling to the center of the bowl. Then set the bowl aside until your cookies have completely cooled. Once your cookies have completely cooled, to assemble the cookies, flip half of your cookies over so the bottom side is facing up. Then scoop 1 to 3 teaspoons of the filling onto each of the cookie halves that the bottom is facing up. Now the amount of filling that you put on there varies depending on how big your cookie is and how much filling that you like. Personally, I like double stuffed, so I like a lot of filling, so I put 1 tablespoon of filling onto each of my cookie halves. But as I already said, I made bigger cookies and I like a lot of filling. So it's up to you how much filling you want, but you do want enough to be able to cover the whole bottom part of that cookie. Make sure you spread the filling evenly over the cookies as much as you can, because when you put the second one on top, you want to make sure it's even and not toppling over. Once you've spread filling evenly over half of the cookies, then take a second cookie and place it on top of each one of the frosted cookies. Press them lightly together to evenly seal the cookies. Store them in an airtight container at room temperature for up to 3 days, or you can store them in the refrigerator if you have a warmer house. If you don't think you're going to eat them all right away, you can freeze them and then just take them out and thaw them out as you want to eat them. And there you go. Gluten-free, keto-friendly Oreos. Eat and enjoy. And that's our recipe of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like and the subscribe button. Leave me a comment if you want to. Let me know if there's any recipes that you'd like to learn how to make, and I'll do what I can to get those out there for you. And as always, keep cooking.